Welcome to Trauma Recovery Anonymous, the podcast. My name is Richard, and I am your host. I tried to explain this to people. I became a Christian very late in life, and I used to do an awful lot of praying. And I used to think that in every business, there's a margin of error in every business of about 8%. It's like 7 to 10% of errors in any industry. So I'm thinking that means that if there's 1 billion people diagnosed with mental disorders, then maybe 50 to 80 million have been misdiagnosed. I remember praying about it one night, and in the middle of the night, you won't believe this, but this voice said to me, Google this. So the next morning I woke up in a shock. I went on to Google and I put in how many people have been misdiagnosed with mental disorders. And the number came back, and in the National Library of Medicine in North America, they did a study by the mental health professionals to say that 39%, 390 million people have been misdiagnosed with mental disorders. And
wow, that's a big number.
Huge number. And then the children who've been diagnosed with mental disorders, 39% of that would be 120 million. And so it's been really a sore point for me about this whole thing about people being diagnosed with mental disorders, when I believe it's a spiritual illness. It's like a broken spirit, and that's the problem they have, eating away at their soul. But so I'm really glad to have Ellen Lubensky on tonight. She is an attorney, and she's also been a patient who's had suffered at the hands of overuse of medication. She's going to talk to you about this whole process. So I'm going to stop talking now and hand you over to Ellen and give her the floor. Ellen, welcome to Trauma Recovery Anonymous.
Thank you so much for having me. So, I'm an attorney. I'm a Stanford graduate. My bar has never been in jeopardy. I speak publicly about the detrimental effects of psychiatric medications because I freely admit that I knew nothing about the warnings on benzodiazepines, which are 2 to 4 weeks, or you may become physically dependent. This is something many people do not know about. I did not have informed consent when I was put on benzodiazepines for insomnia. And that was in December of 2022. I am looking at, probably 2 more years to taper. If I had awareness, if I had a psychiatrist who talked me through it, and had told me about the risks, I would never have become physically dependent. I was not given therapy. I was not given any coping tools besides medication, over medication. This is big pharma. Big pharma pushes pills instead of other solutions such as, diet. Diet for me as a child, or, even now, a good diet is essential to wellness. In any sense, diet is something that you can easily change before you change anything else.
Can I step in 1 minute there? Can I step in before 1 minute? Sure. I love that you've gone down the road of diet. First of all, I want to say, please don't think that myself and Ellen are conspiracy theorists. This is not a conspiracy theorist thing. This is not aliens or whatever. This is the truth. Yeah. Ellen experienced where she didn't get any protection. She was just given medication as the solution. That was it. And we think of people with mental disorders who are just given medication and left to suffer with medication. And again, my thing is that science tells us about cause and effect. The effect is how it manifests in our lives. And the mental health professionals treat how it affects the feelings. How does that make you feel? That's always going to trigger a negative reaction. But if they were to happen in the past to make you feel that way, we're not being triggered, but we're looking at what happened in the past and we realize it didn't happen to us. So the reason why I have Ellen on today, she's going to talk from her own personal experience and also as an attorney, that this is not a conspiracy. We're not conspiracy theorists.
There's no conspiracy here. I mean, I think that big pharma, pushes pills. It's 100%. It is the cheap solution to medicate you. I firmly believe that I'm autistic. I firmly believe that I was misdiagnosed as bipolar at 20. This is something that is, extraordinarily common, apparently. That, doctors misdiagnose you as bipolar 1 when in fact you are autistic. I am actually in protracted withdrawal from antipsychotics as well. I was physically disabled for 20 years, which is a side effect of antipsychotics. So I have a story like none other. I post public on 6 platforms right now. There's nobody in my community that will admit that they are in psychiatric medication withdrawal at all. Sorry. These are things that should be spoken about openly and publicly. They should not be things that you hide in corners about. I thought that my job would be in jeopardy if I spoke publicly that I was struggling, that I was on antipsychotics. So I hid in corners, and most people with mental health issues feel that they have to hide, that these are not truths that they can tell. Unlike cancer, psychiatric medication withdrawal is almost 100% preventable if you know the risks. And I didn't know the risks. For some people, psychiatric medications are very much helpful. For me, they have not been. I believe in reporting psychiatrists who do not give informed consent. And I am, in fact, today or tomorrow, I am filing suit against a psychiatrist who failed to give me informed consent. As an attorney, I can represent myself. It is extraordinarily difficult to find attorneys who will represent people in psychiatric medication withdrawal, because these cases are very difficult to win and require a lot of funding. But I feel very strongly that this is a case that I wish to pursue so that this psychiatrist will not harm others as I have been harmed.
Ellen, before you continue, do you want to grab a glass of water and I'll step in? Because I need a glass of water beside me all the time to sip on.
I have water here.
Well, you have a sip there. I'm going to mention, I wish you well. I'm going to say prayers for you that it comes through the way it needs to come through. It's wonderful that you're standing up for yourself. I think if you could teach people to learn that they are important. I tell my audience that you're a child of God, perfect exactly as you are, with all your defects and shortcomings, all your doubts.
Exactly.
Others can do what you can do, but no one can do what you can do with your energy. That's what makes you so unique, so special. You were created for a reason. God doesn't make mistakes. He's never made a mistake in his life, and you're not a mistake. You were created for meaning and purpose. And if people can understand that, then they'll stand up for themselves and they'll just say no, or they want to be informed. I think we have to empower people to be like you. You're a hero, I believe, standing up for the truth. Again, we're not conspiracy theorists. It sounds like we're conspiracy theorists. We're not. This is the truth. But I love what Ellen said about that. It's not just a taboo. We weren't created in God's image to take medication for life. That wasn't a part of her. We're meant to be complete in our bodies as it is. And once we put food in our body and we feed the mind, we feed the soul, we feed the body with exercise and with food, we can be healthier. This idea of just feeding one organ and ignoring the rest, I think is, again, what you just said a moment ago, it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. No, I mean, we all have, mental health issues of some sort. I don't want to be diagnosed. I don't want to be labeled. If you're in a contentious divorce, you are people often rush to medicate you instead of giving you therapy. As a child, I went to self-harm at 11 because I was not given therapy. I was not given coping tools. I attempted at 16, and I was in a psychiatric hospital for a month. That I firmly believe that psychiatric hospitals are highly detrimental. They do not treat you as a person. They treat you, as a patient. They are not individualized. For some people, they might be helpful. For me, it's better to call up a friend to say, I'm having a bad day. This is not, a commitment. This is not being committed. It's just, I need a friend to talk to right now. Instead of, oh my God, you're having negative thoughts. Let's lock you up for a month. That's not the right way to handle psychiatric conditions. Early morning sunshine is fabulous. Sunshine, exercise. The 80-hour work week for attorneys and people. I know so many attorneys who at the end of their careers find themselves burnt out. They have been overworked. They have not taken time for themselves. The cardinal rule is choose yourself first. And many people do not choose themselves first. And there's a lot of burnout because of that. I also speak publicly about the Social Security disability system. I was an attorney. My bar has never been in jeopardy. I've tried many a case. I was an attorney at the SSI project at the SSI project at Legal Services of New Jersey. There, I was told time and time again, I had to push people to follow doctors' advice to take psychiatric medications, even when they preferred to use holistic means, such as using ice packs or breathing through panic attacks. And I would see time and time again that they would be denied Social Security disability benefits as a result. I believe that's really inappropriate. I offered the SSI project a free training on the detrimental effects of psychiatric medications because the attorneys and staff there were almost completely unaware of the risks. And it was greatly disturbing to me that people on TikTok knew more about the detrimental effects of psychiatric medications than attorneys at the SSI project. My offer of a free training was refused. I firmly believe that this is because of issues with funding from welfare. There were the SSD, the SSI project was almost fully funded by welfare. I was urged not to give people job resources who wanted to work and could work because they were were not given those resources. They wanted to work, and instead they were told, "You're disabled. Stay at home."
Now we're getting close to the conspiracies that people talk about.
Well, I wouldn't say it's exactly a conspiracy, but funding from welfare is powerful. Money is extraordinarily powerful in this world.
Well, I met someone recently who was diagnosed with PTSD, and basically they wanted to work, but they were told if they worked, they would lose their social welfare payments and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So they had to stay under the system, under the mantle of having PTSD and going to therapy and taking the medication. And if they stopped the therapy and medication, they'd lose their social welfare benefits. And they hadn't worked in 2 years, and there's no chance of going back to work. And so they were dependent on the state. Again, this reeks of conspiracy, but it's the truth. So I'm just saying, I know there's this conspiracy. Other people say that's all the conspiracy theory gobshites. But this is truth. This is happening in the real world. You've experienced it in New Jersey.
Yes, definitely.
You've experienced it. People are being controlled or manipulated to feed a certain industry, and it's very sad. And that's the truth.
It is. It is very sad the way this works. The manipulation that occurs. I mean, there's also a lot of discrimination against people with mental health issues. People. I don't know if people think, I'm crazy because I speak about having mental health issues. I don't believe I'm a psychiatric case. I don't want to have people label me as a psychiatric case. I don't know this. I'm a person. People should be treated as individuals and not as a diagnostic category. The things that have happened to me, I lost 20 years to physical disability. Tardive dyskinesia is something I'm having a medical case study to see how I resolved to baseline. For 20 years, I could do almost nothing. I couldn't climb stairs very well. I could barely play on the playground with my child. I was told that if I tried to get off antipsychotics, I would go manic. I asked for years to be let off antipsychotics. I ultimately had to bring my ex-husband in to say he supported my no to antipsychotics. In fact, none of that happened. My tardive dyskinesia, I thought it might free my mind. I went to taking ballet class, to ice skating. I can do back crossovers at 48 after 25 years of doing almost nothing at all.
Ellen, I've got to say at this moment, I've got to say at this moment, it is fantastic. For my audience out there who've been on medication and think that their lives are over, Ellen came from 20 years of nothing to becoming an attorney. So
I was an attorney beforehand. I've been an attorney since I was.
Well, then you maintained it, or
I maintained my bar.
What you've achieved is fantastic, and what you keep achieving is fantastic, and being a mother and whatever, and having a relationship with your ex-husband.
Being a mother is one of the most important things to me, and I would never jeopardize my child.
I just want to compliment you on that. That's for the audience out there to see that you're not completely finished. You're not completely broken. You still have a soul. You're still capable of rising like a phoenix from the ashes. Don't give up on life because you've been told you've got this, that, or the other. Be willing to fight for your life, as Ellen is here. Continue, Ellen. I want to just throw that in there if I could.
Benzo withdrawal is a day-by-day thing. You don't know what's going to come up. And I knew nothing flat. There are many people who die of suicide. There are many seizures. Many people go to akathisia, which is inner restlessness. People spike blood pressures. You have weird anxiety flares. I can't find things. I have trouble folding my clothing. Things that I roll with the punches much better now because I know that this is what benzodiazepines do. But I freely admit that I knew nothing flat. And I know that the worst things will not happen to me because I have the finances for the best care possible. But many people have to lie to their doctors to get off of benzodiazepines, which is, extraordinarily inappropriate to me, that people would have to lie in order to be taken off of medications that they do not want to be on. That's something that's horrible. So, these are things that need to be spoken about transparently in our society so that people can make an informed decision about whether they want to be put on psychiatric medications. I'm reluctant to seek medical attention because I'm afraid that I'm going to be labeled as a psychiatric case and, told, no, this is a psychiatric issue. So, the other day I stepped on my leg wrong. Not a big deal. I screamed. And I said, okay, am I going to go to urgent care? Are they going to treat me like a psych case and say that, a pull in my muscle is a psychiatric case? And I was reluctant to go to urgent care. And, luckily they did not treat me like that. They said, treat yourself well. Don't walk on it too much. There are many people who are cut whose doctors do not trust them. And I have doctors who trust me 100% and know that I am not an addict. I have never misused a substance. I know that if I tip my jar of Valium, I can go to the ER and get an emergency supply of Valium, and I will not be labeled as an addict. There's two types of addicts. There's one type who are cut cold turkey. Their doctors, stop prescribing them benzodiazepines, and they are forced to go onto the streets to buy benzodiazepines. And, they're then labeled as addicts. There are also addicts who, are drug seeking. And that is very different. They overuse benzodiazepines, but most people in benzodiazepine withdrawal are not addicts. And many people did not receive informed consent. They did not know the risks when they were put on psychiatric medications.
Your points are very valid, but I'd love to be able to offer the audience some kind of solution-based ideas. You mentioned alternative and patient-centered approaches.
Yes.
Could you expand on that a little bit for me?
Sure. Psychiatrists generally are given 15-minute appointments. In those 15-minute appointments, they do not have time to have a personalized approach with you. They do not have time to do much more than say, are you feeling depressed today? Are you feeling anxious? Okay, I'm going to give you pills. These are things that are not advisable. Giving you pills only for instead of giving you other coping tools, just giving you pills is not the way to do it. If psychiatrists were given, hour-long appointments in order to get to know the person and see if there's some other way to treat their mental health problems other than with prescribing, that would be much better.
Brilliant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your words. It probably shouldn't shock me. I went med seeking when I was much younger for depression. Mm-hmm. I went to my doctor and asked him and he gave me a medication, no problem. And when I went to come off it, I shared the story that I was walking down to my local town, and back then there weren't many immigrants around, and at that time, 40 years ago, the immigrants were Romanian gypsies. And I'm walking down the street, and this woman sitting on the pathway with her child, pulling at my trouser leg, looking for money. And I was so caught up in the jokes, I was completely oblivious to her need, and I shrugged her off and I walked away. When I got home that evening and the medication wore off, I never felt such ashamed of myself. So I went to my doctor the next day and said, I want to come off these meds. They're destroying my ability to be human. And he said, no, you can't. So I took 2 weeks off from work, 3 weeks off from work, and I did cold turkey in my home, and it was horrific, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And at the end of it, I came out and I was stark, raving lunatic, but I was pure of the drugs. I went and I told him I went off the drugs, and he said to me, "You gobshite." I didn't mean don't do it. It just meant you'd have to do it slowly. But I didn't want to do it slowly. I wanted to do it. I didn't want to take 2 months or 3 months. I needed. If I took 2 or 3 months, I wouldn't. I'd stay on there. Something happened, I'd stay on there. I wanted to get off it. So I was fortunate that I was working for myself. I was able to take some time off. Mm-hmm. But I remember doing it, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And I was only on one medication. So it's very hard to come off the medication. And I tell you anyway, if you have insurance,
it is very, very hard.
Go into a treatment center. Find some treatment center where you can go for a month or 3 months.
I warn people against detox centers. Detox centers are widely regarded as bad for benzodiazepines.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Because they take you off benzodiazepines in 2 to 4 weeks, which is extraordinarily detrimental because people suffer long-term from that.
Thank
you. The best way, I firmly believe, from talking to many doctors, is you have to slow taper. And that's a very long process. I mean, going cold turkey, I'm glad that you're fine, and some people are fine afterwards. But no, you could suffer seizures or have severe side effects from doing that.
I get that now. Yeah. Looking back, I'm shocked I came through it. But thank you for pointing that out. I've been saying to people, you go into a treatment center for 6 months or a year where you can come off the medication in a safe place. But again, if that's not the best thing, that's not the best thing.
Yeah, no, for alcohol, it can be beneficial. For benzodiazepines, detox centers are widely regarded as not beneficial. If it helps you, okay, but they're generally regarded as detrimental. Right. I have tried everything imaginable because I have the resources to do it, and many things have not worked. And, some things have. Firstly, cutting yourself a break. Saying, I can take a day off instead of pushing yourself, instead of going to the doctor and saying, I need medication. I firmly believe is a better way to handle things.
I love that. I suggest people having cheat days. Allow yourself a cheat day once a month.
A mental health day. There is nothing wrong with a mental health day.
Either way, either on medication or off medication, say, okay, just for today, I'm not going to think about the past or the future. I'm just going to get busy in the present for one day and just, forget about the troubles of the past, the troubles of the future. Just going to be busy today.
Exactly. No, keep yourself busy. Boredom is your worst nightmare in many ways. Sitting around doing nothing, it's hard to keep your mind occupied. And I struggle when I don't have anything to do. But I try to meditate and do things for myself.
What kind of meditation do you use, Ellen? What kind of meditation do you do?
I do a lot. I use a lot of Insight Timer.
Okay.
I
keep it simple and easy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, things that are easy. Just apps on your phone. I do tapping. There's tapping.
Yeah, I love tapping.
Tapping is wonderful. Humming. Going outside and exercising. Sunshine. I can't wait for there to be sunshine. Relaxing on the beach. Taking time for yourself.
Can I come back to your humming for 1 minute?
Sure.
But they say music is the food of the soul. And I don't believe we have mental disorders. I believe we have a soul sickness, a hole in our soul. That the energy of a past event is eating away at us. And the best food for the soul is music. Humming is fantastic. So in your shower, sing a song, or in your shower, hum, or on the toilet, hum, or when you're walking the dog, or in the bed, no one's listening. Hum a tune to yourself, sing a tune. If you haven't got a note in your head, hum in your mind, sing in your mind.
Yes.
Just spiritually sing, just to feed your soul. It'll change you. So exactly. I want to jump in there. You're giving a lot of fantastic ideas, like yoga is superb.
Yes.
I love tapping. Tapping is my go-to. I think
tapping is great. Massage and acupuncture and diet were what my doctor told me. Massage. For me, what's mostly left is insomnia. I became a profound insomniac on the last night of my bad taper off of clozapine on November 13th of 2023. And I at times slept 0 to 1 hour of sleep, and having a massage before bedtime helps me sleep. These are things that are not available to most people because of the costs. So I am in the process of setting up a charity because most things are not covered in withdrawal. Almost all of my expenses this year have been unreimbursable medical expenses. So, I'm going to set up a charity where people are provided subsidized life coaches to help them safely come off of psychiatric medications.
One thing
a very long process.
One thing I'd love to say, just on that topic about holistic, don't be afraid to go to a holistic practice and say, do you need any practice students? Like for learners, you want someone to practice on. So like, I mean, a Thai massage could cost you €60 for an hour. But if you're willing to be a subject for someone who's learning, they may charge you €10 or 20. You know what I mean? They might charge you $10 or $15 for the same hour.
Exactly.
You're getting someone who isn't trained, who's learning and using your body for training. And it'll work out, be a better massage than you can give yourself. But it won't be.
That's a terrific suggestion. But there are also things like you can buy rolling balls that help do massages for much more cheaply.
I was going to ask you for loads of things to give, and this is what I'm looking for. So
yes, again, and also ice packs. Ice packs are great. Hot and cold temperature changes are great that are cheap. I buy heating pads. Anything that helps you relax. I know this is going to sound funny, but my doctor recommended masturbation. Anything that helps you, relax.
I'm sorry for laughing because at one time that was my go-to for sleep. So I shouldn't.
My doctor seriously recommended that.
No one's ever said it out loud on a podcast, but I have to tell you, in my day, 20, 30 years ago, when I could, I would fall asleep right after it. So if you're capable of doing it,
sleep hygiene is extraordinarily important. Um, you know, being able to sleep allows you to function.
Completely.
Anything, don't medicate me. Psychiatric medications have been extremely harmful to me. And I knew nothing flat. My prognosis when I went into withdrawal I was told in September that I would not be able to concentrate to practice full-time as an attorney in years because of severe concentration issues, because I cannot follow screens very well. However, that doesn't mean that I can't read and I cannot file a lawsuit. But watching a TV show is not something that is fun for me. I set boundaries and say, I don't like watching TV, and that's okay.
And also,
watching TV.
No caffeine before bed.
Yeah, I have very little. I almost never have caffeine. I was in ketosis. Ketosis was actually very harmful for me.
Okay.
Now that I'm eating better.
Ketosis is, for the audience?
So ketosis is a very high fat, low carbohydrate diet. That for me was highly detrimental. For other people, it can be beneficial. I have now added in carbohydrates, some sugars. I make sure I'm hydrated. Hydrating yourself is extraordinarily important.
Also, if you're on medication, there's some vegetables, vitamins you can't take. I found my own personally. I'm on heart medication, and I can't eat a lot of dark green vegetables. So you'll find also there's certain foods you shouldn't eat if you're on medication. Find out which they are. Do a search on Google for your medication.
Yeah, no, definitely. I get criticized for this, but I ask ChatGPT what I can eat.
I Google it. I Google it. I'm on this medication. What can I?
ChatGPT for many things is not accurate, but for what I should eat in benzodiazepine withdrawal, it tells me that there's certain foods that are not good for me. And, occasionally having ice cream, that's okay. Treating yourself well, that's okay.
So yes, the other thing is, even though it says you can't have dark greens, it doesn't mean you can never have dark greens. So if I have dark greens with my dinner today, it won't kill me. But if I have dark greens for every meal and my break and my dessert, like 10 times a day, 20 times a day, it will have an effect on the medication. But if I have it once in a meal in a week or something, it won't have the same effect. So you learn how to manage your diet, manage your amount of coffee. Again, turn your phone off before bed. Don't turn it on for an hour after bed. Because if you're going to bed with this
I unplug my phone.
Yeah.
I keep it turned on as a safety measure.
Okay.
Because in this day and age, I don't have a landline. Okay. So, having a phone available is a safety measure for me.
Great. That's the kind of thing I need to learn. Anything else that you can share with me for the next 15 minutes, all your tips and advice that people can use would be beautiful, Ellen.
My tips and advice.
Yeah.
Let's see. I believe in exercise, and giving yourself grace and ease. I was told you have to push yourself. You have to be perfect. You have to do everything. I'm a perfectionist, and I was told, in college, you can't take a break. And, I graduated with my credentials are impeccable, but it might have been better for me to have taken a little bit of time off rather than being put on antipsychotics. If I'd taken a year off, if I'd taken a gap year, that would have been a better thing for me. Cut yourself a break. Choose yourself first is always the key principle. Self-love. Those are the things that I talk publicly about. I go to the orthodontist. My teeth have done strange things in withdrawal. And my orthodontist doesn't know what benzodiazepine withdrawal is. most therapists don't know what benzodiazepine withdrawal is. There's something like 12.5% of the population who has been on benzodiazepines. And there's, people suffering tremendously across platforms who knew nothing at all. And, there is more awareness now, but no, there needs to be greater awareness of these things.
Yeah.
If a child is struggling, you give them therapy, you give them time to heal. When you say therapy could be just family, it could be just interaction with family. It doesn't have to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Therapy could be just let them out to play. Let them play with crayons, or play with crayons. Let
the
them
children or something. Maybe if they're a home child, leave them out, play sports, join a sports event, join a sports team. Therapy can be just interacting with other people their age. It might be introducing them to God and being to church. It might be going on a holiday with them.
Exactly.
Therapy doesn't mean...
Spend time with your child. Spend time. Make sure that you take time to spend with your child, because childhood is something that does not last forever.
Thank you for that.
I have a child, and she wants to spend time with me, and I love that. There are limits to how much time I can spend with her, unfortunately. But we are very close. I know she has had therapy from an early age, and I have firm boundaries that she will not be medicated. At least I want to travel. I missed out on 20 years. I barely did anything for 20 years. And I want to see the world.
Yeah. It's great having those goals and dreams. There's another thing. Have goals and dreams.
Also have dreams. Have dreams.
Have goals, have dreams, have aspirations. There's nothing wrong with having a dream. The other great thing I was heard about is a dream doesn't turn into a nightmare unless you invite something bad into it. So have what I call dream prayer. Dream something that you want as though it's happened already, and see yourself in that space. If you're public speaking, see yourself on the stage, nailing it and getting a standing ovation. And have that dream. You've actually had this speech before. Then you go on the stage and suddenly there's no nerves and you nail it. Have a dream prayer. Dream it in advance. Dream it's happened already. So have dreams, have goals, have aspirations. To be an attorney, to whatever.
Exactly.
Just reach for the stars. No one says you can't reach for the stars. You can reach for anything you want, or you can stay stuck. And why stay stuck when you can reach for the stars? Helen, you're
exactly. Reach for the stars. Dream, set your goals, your aspirations. And my aspiration is to let people know about the detrimental effects of psychiatric medications before they become physically dependent. That's what I wake up about 4 in the morning. And, it's why I post public, to spread awareness. So I'd like to give my website information.
Please do.
Okay?
Please do. Oh, yeah. Please do. Yes. I'll be adding all your details in the links.
Okay,
below,
perfect.
But you please share it now, if you would.
So my website is Ellen Lubensky, ELLEN, LUBENSKY.com. I have, reels there that you can watch. You can also feel free to follow me on any platform. I do lives currently on LinkedIn at 8:30 on Thursday mornings, and I do lives on TikTok as well. Feel free to private message me. I can't give medical advice. I can't give legal advice, but I can offer any support that I can offer in this process.
One thing, Ellen, your time of 8:30, is that EST or Central Standard Time?
It's Eastern Daylight Time on LinkedIn.
Okay, so if you're in the UK or Australia, look up Eastern EDT.
Eastern, right? People, it's Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. Yeah.
Okay, EST. So EST, and you'll get what 8:30 is in UK or in Australia, just so you can tap into that. Ellen, you're wonderful. I love your energy. I love you've achieved so much, and you're a mother, and you're an ex-wife, but you're on good terms with your husband. These are all.
Oh yes, no, he knows exactly. I post public, and he is very much aware of my mission.
It's fantastic. And I love all your little things about yoga. I've spoken before about you could do chair yoga. Like
if you're older, chair yoga is great. No,
I'm older. I can just chair older. So just don't be afraid to think outside the box. If it's just a walk, if it's just a walk around the block, or it's really cool as well, is go out in your back garden with a chair, take off your shoes and socks, and plant your feet in the grass or in the earth, and just sit, and you'll feel this energy come up from Mother Earth into your body. And it's the most beautiful. I'm a Christian, but you sit your feet on the earth and let the energy of the earth come into you.
Exactly. Grounding, being outside in nature. Nature is wonderful.
And I've done it where I've gone down to Dingle in Ireland, and on a wet day, we stand on the headland and let the spray of the sea and the rain drown us. And that feels wonderful. So don't be afraid to think. I used to hug trees in my younger years. Whatever you think works for you, that gives you an edge or a sense of being alive, do it.
Yes. No, right. No, treat yourself well. Splurge once in a while.
Alan, I've loved every moment of your visit here. You've shared so much wonderful stuff. Please go along to Ellen's website. Drop into her, follow her, learn from her. She's got so much she can help you with. I never did benzo. I never did drugs of any kind, except that time I was on medication.
Benzodiazepines are prescription. They are controlled substances, but they are not, there's nothing illegal about them.
Yeah. But don't be afraid to ask Ellen for her experience, and she'll share that with you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Ellen, thank you for coming on to my podcast. It was a pleasure having you on.